Good tips, Ethan. All right, this question I'm super excited about. So I really like Jeff Bezos. That's one of the reasons I really wanted to join Amazon. And you mentioned in your multiple posts that you worked with Jeff. If you can share how it was to interact with him and one takeaway that you learned from him, that would be awesome.
I did have the good fortune to work with Jeff a lot across all of my career. There's so many tips and tricks I learned from watching him. I'm sure all of your viewers are smart and well educated. One of the humbling things about Jeff is I'm just like you. I like to be smart. I like to say the most clever things and be first
Mhm.
to the insight. Jeff's really smart, and quickly around him you realize like, I'm playing at the college level and he's playing pro, and like it just isn't the same. My favorite lesson from Jeff, I think, is how he evaluated projects. He got very good at asking insightful questions. He had these three questions to judge a new proposal. And those questions were, is it real? Is it worth it? Can we win? So, is it real meant like, okay, you have this idea you're proposing, but is it a time machine? Is it perpetual motion? Like, when we really dig into it, can it be built? Can it be shipped? Because there's some things that just can't be built right now. We've all seen Star Trek in like a holodeck. Well,
Mhm.
we're getting closer to that with virtual reality, but
Right.
like your holodeck proposal probably isn't quite ready yet. Now, so that's, is it real? The second thing is it worth it? Well, there are some things that can be built, but they don't have a lot of market or profit potential. There may be low margin or niche products. I once remember someone trying to pitch our group that we should build specialized features for to control in-house sound systems like
Mm.
Sonos. Well, that's a pretty narrow market. Like most people's houses don't have in-house sound system. And then the third question was, can we win? And that was Jeff's looking at a market and saying, is Amazon or is our company well positioned? And so Jeff got hit up with proposals every 6 months, as far as I know, or probably every 6 days,
Mhm.
to go into the financial industry, to build banking apps, to be a bank, to all kinds of things around consumer finance or high finance or being in a stock market player in the sense. And he came from that industry. So it's not that he didn't know it, but he said, look, there are entrenched players there. It's highly regulated. It's well served. How do we differentiate? What are we going to do that's novel?
Mhm.
And so he rejected proposal after proposal. And I'm sure, Andy, to this day, there's people now peppering him with, we should buy Coinbase and fix them. I would say that those three questions were the biggest thing I learned from Jeff: how to evaluate projects, not negatively, but just realize you only have a chance to start a few projects. It takes a lot of resources, so pick
Mhm.
really carefully.
Got it. Also, like, how was he to interact with? Like, one thing I really like about Jeff is he's funny, right? A lot of people don't realize it, but if you watch his interviews, he has a good sense of humor. Like, was he like that when you were working with him, or was he tough to his employees? Like, how was he?
So I've seen both sides of Jeff, but I've mostly
Mhm.
seen the funny. I probably had about 50 meetings with Jeff over
Mhm.
my time at Amazon. And I did see one meeting where he was grilling someone pretty hard. He was upset about the progress of something and he was really like kind of giving that person the third degree for an hour. And that
Mhm.
was kind of uncomfortable. And I was very glad to be sitting at the end of the table only watching. Like, whoa, don't want to be that. But, the other 49 meetings, he was in a good mood. Sometimes he was very funny. I happened just by chance to be in the first meeting Jeff had with his S team
Mm.
after the false story, it turns out to have been false, story broke that he had been sexting with his girlfriend and
Mm.
supposedly sent a picture of his private parts.
Mhm.
Now, it turns out someone just took a picture off the internet and sent it because they had hijacked his phone. And he can prove that. It's not just a cover story. But it's an elephant in the living room, right? Everybody's
Right.
read the news story, Bezos sexting an affair.
Yeah.
And then here he is sitting in the room with everyone that same day.
Yeah.
And he looked at everybody and said, before we start, I just want to know, does anyone here think they've had a worse day than me? Let's talk about it. And, he just laughs and, because he's like, if you've had a worse day than me, I want to hear about it because I need to feel better. And, it's tough. It's a humiliating accusation. Everyone's wondering, like, did he really do that? And oh my God, what, like, is he really that much of an every guy who's like sending pictures of his junk to a girl? He's sitting there with all the, and it also affects the company, right? If the
Right.
CEO, and so he's got to say something, and he handled it with humor. Now, he also handled it in a very Jeff way. He hired an investigative firm and like all these, shark-like people who tracked down and eventually proved, and this is terrible, that it was his girlfriend's kind of slimy brother
Yep.
who was trying to sell a story to a tabloid because he wanted money. So it's like, it's like you can't write this story in fiction. You'd be like, the brother was working with a tabloid. Really? That's bad
Crazy.
writing. But
Crazy.
in the real world, that's what happened.
I bet the brother is not invited to the yacht. Okay, so
No,
he disinvited himself.
now that he's, long-term with Lauren Sanchez,
Yeah,
that's got to be awkward.
gotta
Like
be
your
awkward.
brother threw you under the bus to a tabloid
Yeah,
claiming you were sending dick pics.
right.
It's like that's got to be a family reunion that's tricky.
Yeah, excellent. You also met another guy who I really respect. Just to be fair, Elon Musk. I used to follow him from long back, like way before when he was working with Obama and stuff, before he started tweet storming all this stuff. I used to have a Elon poster on the back, but then I was meeting a lot of customers, and some of his recent tweets kind of pushed people off. I'm a big fan of his first principles thinking. And you also met him. So, how was it to meet Elon Musk?
Yeah, it was fascinating. Thank you for asking. So
Mhm.
what happened is I got a cold call like all of us get that said, hey, we're looking for a VP of software for SpaceX to report to Elon. And I thought, wow, again, it's pre-Twitter days,
Right.
pre-X days.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I have a good job at Amazon, but to work directly from perhaps the only person who rivals Bezos for
Right.
inventiveness and impact, I have to go take this interview.
Yeah.
So the first thing is I don't sneak around. I'm very direct. And so I went and told my boss, hey, I got this email to go interview with Musk. I got to do it. Like, it's no offense to you or to Amazon, but I got to,
Mm-hmm.
if I can help put people on Mars, that's a historic achievement, to the point I was already thinking in my life about the question of where can I do something more meaningful to mankind? Well, the funny thing is, my boss said, oh, yeah, you should totally talk to him. I interviewed to go work at Tesla and we didn't connect, but he's a good guy. You should go meet him. So I flew down to California and I was doing my interviews. Now, something you should know about me, I have a technical background, but once I became an executive, I felt that my job was to focus on leading the team, developing the people, setting the strategy, not to also try and keep my hand in daily coding.
Right.
And I had told the recruiters, hey, when you say VP of software, let's just be clear what you mean. Do you mean someone to lead the software team, or do you mean like this other model, which is also fine? It's just not my model of part-time coder, part-time leader, because I'm not that. And
Mm-hmm.
they said, oh, no. We want a VP of software. I'm like, great. I
Mm-hmm.
show up. I'm doing the interviews. I get to Elon. We're having a nice talk. We talk 10, 15 minutes. He seems like a nice guy. And then he says, well, I would want you to code 10% of the time.
Mm.
And my jaw hits the table because I'm like, oh my God, I ask about this 100%. And so I kind of pick my jaw back up and I say to him, hey, do you know, I don't do that, but do you know, I told your recruiting team, I'm not your person if you want a part-time coder. And he's like, what? What'd they say? And they said, oh no, Elon doesn't want that. And he's like, what do you mean? Of course I want that. And I'm like, hey, that's not my problem. I talked to him about it for a minute. And I did say, like, I don't see how it makes sense, how it's even wise to have a part-time coder writing code for a rocket that people are going to ride on. Like, I don't want to ride on the rocket that I coded in my spare time between meetings. This is not. And he's like, okay, you've got a point. Like, you should write test code or framework code or something. I'm like, all right, I don't agree. And he said, well, we're going to have to agree to disagree. And that was the end, in that I knew it was over. Now, it is interesting. The thought passed through my mind. He's only asking me if I will do this. He's not going to test me. It's not like he's got a whiteboard in here and he's going to be like, reverse a string.
Yeah.
So I could have just said, okay, but I knew that signing myself up for expectations I didn't really believe in wasn't a win for either of us. And so what happened was I said, hey, I appreciate your time. I'm not your person. I'd rather maintain our relationship for some future where we can work together. So I'm going to leave and give you your time back. And so I can honestly say I walked out of an interview with Elon Musk. And now that he's shown a new side to himself, let's say politely, I don't regret, I didn't regret the decision at the time, but I was sad. Now I don't regret the decision. And I feel like, oh, good call, Ethan. Like, you dodged a bullet. So that's my Elon Musk story. But he was a nice guy. Like, I've heard he can be very difficult, obviously, has a reputation. I'm sure it would have been very hard work.
Right.
But I had a good interview with him.
Excellent. I don't think not many people can say they walked out of an Elon Musk interview. But I do hope Tesla does good, because I do have shitload of Tesla stocks.
Yeah, me too. So.
And the last thing is, you wanted your name to be in history, which you already did, because you helped craft ownership leadership principle, which will keep it for some other time.